dolls, it's me, your suet puddin' Wilma Fingerdew with damn powder. Hey dolls, it's me, Wilma Fingerdew, your suet puddin' with another Drag Queen approved video. Why so many, you ask? Well, I got a ton of makeup for my birthday, and one of the palettes that I got sent was this little beauty. It is called Revenge of the 80s, and it is by Creature Cosmetics. It was sent to me by the lovely and talented Martha Grunwald, and this is a brand that she is very familiar with. They do a lot of licensing of a lot of independent horror movies like Reanimator, Bride of the Reanimator, Terrifier, things like that. I've seen the Reanimator series, but I haven't seen Terrifier. That's a newer one for me anyway. But they also have their own line of stuff, and this is one of them. They have one, The Revenge of the 90s, The Revenge of the 80s, and it's in a case that's meant to look like a VHS tape. Although, quite frankly, I think this is a beta tape. This shape is more beta. If you are as old as I am, then you know the difference between a VHS and a beta tape just by looking at it. Personally, I think that's a beta. It doesn't say it's a VHS anywhere, but in the 80s, VHS was king. So this is the palette. I'm very excited because I don't have anything from this company. This is the Color Story. It is gorgeous. Let me just get a better look on this. I really love this. My big complaint right out of the gate, there isn't really anything white because this is a white shimmer, this is a silver shimmer, and this is a green shimmer. On the plus side, those are the only shimmers. There's also a purple glitter, which I don't have a problem with glitters. I just don't use them a lot because it takes forever to clean them off your face. It just takes forever. Glitter is everywhere. And then this black up here, I love this because it has glitter in it or shimmer. It's a bit of a, it looks like it wants to be silver shimmer in this, but it has a bit of a rainbow quality. So I feel like there are other colors in there. That said though, the rest of the Color Story is fabulous. I'm very excited to use this. So I have done my face with my Juvia's Place foundation. I have done my eyebrows already, and the reason I did my eyebrows is there really aren't eyebrow tones in this palette, which is fine. It's no deal breaker for me, but I did use the Norvina palette. This is number 3. This was given to me by David Burkett, one of my makeup enablers. Martha and David, they're my big makeup enablers. I don't use this near as much, but I love the Color Story. Now, the only problem with this palette, no dark, no white. Anything light in here is a shimmer. And I think these are like the darkest tones. But it was great for eyebrows. So I used that today for eyebrows. And I'm using my P. Louise Just Roll With It contour palette to do contouring. Those are the only other palettes that I'll be using today. For the most part, I am going to be sticking with this. Now, I'm going to do a green outer eye and then an orangey yellow inner eye. So I'm going to start with, I don't know, let's use this one. This is a P. Louise 27. I don't know why I try and read anything without looking through the magnifying glass. This is a P. Louise 271. It's just a rounded fluffy brush, but it's short. It's not got a lot of play on it. And I'm going to go in with this beautiful green right here. And this one is called Reanimate. All of these names are quite good. The purple glitter is called Clowns, but it's spelled with a K. The green shimmer is Gremlin. These are all 80s things. Thing is this purple matte. Poltergeist is this white shimmer. Cemetery is the silver shimmer. Good Guy, the yellow. Nightmare, this reddy purple. Evil Dead, That Purple. These are all names of fabulous movies from the 80s. If you haven't seen them, I can't help you. Um, or they're in the title of a movie. Chainsaw Massacre, this is Massacre. Reanimate, which is the series, The Reanimator. Halloween, of course, that needs no introduction. And the last one is the 13th. So these are the colors that we'll be playing with. I'm going in to Reanimate with my P. Louise 271, and let's just get started. I was a teenager in the 80s. I was born in 1966. Children, gather around while I tell you all about the 80s. Right after they chased the dinosaurs off the earth, we had the 80s, and that was my time. Now, it was a weird time for me because I was a teenager, but I didn't like being a teenager because I was bullied, and my mom was married to a violent alcoholic, and it was just not a good time for me. But the music, oh, thank God for the music. And because I wasn't really welcome in my own home, it was really quite normal for me to not be there and no one to ask why I wasn't there or where I was. So at 16, I was going out to bars, clubs. We had a couple of clubs in the 80s in Toronto. One was called the Voodoo Lounge. It opened at midnight. It was $5 to get in, and you couldn't wear denim. They tried to keep like the suburban element out of this club. It was really just all punks and new waves. There were we had like punk rockers with mohawks in there. A lot of street urchin type kids like that were trying to be unique and different from either they lived in the city like I did, or they hitchhiked in from the surrounding towns and places. Toronto's a very big city, and now we have what we call the Greater Toronto Area, the GTA, and so a lot of cities like Mississauga, a lot of these places used to be boroughs. I grew up in East York in Toronto, and it is a borough, but it's become part of the GTA. And what was terrible about that amalgamation was East York in itself was pretty good. Like at that time, any of the taxes and things you kept in that community. And so in East York, I remember like we had really good pavement. Like there were not a lot of potholes on the streets. When skateboarding got bigger, a lot of kids came to our neighborhoods to skateboard because it was like glass. It was fabulous. But when they amalgamated a lot of these areas like Scarborough became a city, and then it got amalgamated. I don't know if it's still amalgamated. It's part of the GTA. But we had Vaughan, the city of Vaughan, which is north of the city, Mississauga, Etobicoke, all of these areas around Toronto all became part of the GTA. And so I lived in Toronto. I lived in East York. And when I went downtown, I mean, I've been going downtown since I was 8 or 9. I used to go downtown to watch movies by myself. Like, I didn't have friends. But I was also a very tall kid. I looked like a 16-year-old at 8, And when I was 16, I would get into a lot of bars. Like I was going to gay bars then because I looked old enough to be in them. No one questioned it. I'm just going to take this empty. It's a clean brush from Artitude Cosmetics. It's from their Man-Eater collection. I'm just going to blend this out just a little on the edge. But I loved, oh my God, the Thompson Twins. I remember going to see the Thompson Twins at the CNE when they still had the bandstand. There was, it was an open air bandstand, it was for baseball. So they would set up a stage on the field. And I saw Bette Midler there. I saw the Thompson Twins. I'm trying to think who else I saw. But the stage was actually quite far from the bleachers, but there was seating on the field. And I remember the Thompson Twins was a concert that was good to see because it was a white stage with levels, boxes, and things like this. So it was very 80s, so it was very graphic. And what they did was they projected different patterns onto this white surface. So it was black and white checkerboard, it was stripes, things like that. And the Thompson twins, hold me now. They were great, but it was so funny at that time because I was living on my own. First of all, this light green is gorgeous. Let me just say, the Reanimate is gorgeous. I'm really enjoying that. I'm going to go in now with the same brush, and I'm going into the 13th, which is the darker green right here. Just build this up a bit. But I was working as a dishwasher in a restaurant, and we used to, at the end of the shift, collect at the bar, the staff, and we'd drink. We'd have a drink or two, and that's actually where I learned how to drink, like how I learned what I liked, what I didn't like. Like I just kept, every time we had a drink, I'd have something different, which of course meant that I just got wrecked. And I remember one night before the Thompson Twins concert, I was working and I got schmammered. I don't even really remember how I got home, but I woke up and I couldn't find my Metro Pass. I remember part of the problem, I was so hungover, I couldn't stand up without being nauseous. And I thought, oh, I'm going to die. And then my friend's like, are you coming? Like, where are you? Like, we got to get ready. And I'm like, oh, don't make me go out. I'm too damaged. I can't. And he's like, you're coming. I bought these tickets. You're coming. And I was like, oh, but I couldn't find my Metro Pass. Well, one of the things, like, I just thought I'd lost it. I don't even know how. I don't even know how I got home on the subway. Where I worked was kind of like Young and Bloor area, and where I lived was out in the East End, kind of like Pape and Gerrard area. And I thought, oh, I've lost my Metro Pass. And, you know, I could barely afford a Metro Pass, but I had to get to work. So I would always buy the Metro Pass. Then that way the money's spent, but I can get to work. And so I was trying my best to pull it together. And one of the things we used to do, I mean, most people in restaurants, I think, do this, but we would get the food, like if the food, like I remember bringing home like a container of tuna salad because it was going to go bad, and you know, and we weren't open on the weekends. This restaurant, this was like a restaurant in a business area, so it was mostly early dinner meals and lunches. So the nice thing with that job was I was really never. It wasn't a lot of late nights, but I mean, you know, 9 or 10, we'd be done. And I opened the fridge and there was this thing of tuna salad that I had brought home, and my Metro Pass was stuck to it. So I thought, okay, good, found my Metro Pass, we're good. And but I was so nauseous, and I just was like, oh, please don't make me go out, please don't make me go out. I'm going into now, even though this has glitter in it, I'm going into Massacre, which is the black with the shimmer, but I want to build up this outer corner. So same brush. I would like to say I'm still only using the same brush just to build all of this up. Even though this has glitter in it, with most glitter mats, the glitter really doesn't show when you blend it. But if you, like, I like to use this kind of black, this is why I love black glitter, or black matte with shimmer glitter in it, is it's a great way to set your eyeliner, and then you get a little light play there. So I had to get on the streetcar to go out to the CNE, which is where this concert was, and because the tickets, they allowed you into the fairgrounds. So the nice thing about going to see a concert is you could go to the concert, but you could go early and you could go to the CNE and do stuff, because otherwise I think the CNE was like $5 or $10 to get, and I don't remember what the cover was. But it was expensive. I remember being expensive, but that's because I was always broke. Everything when I was growing up was expensive, so we didn't do a lot of stuff. I remember the one year that we did go to the CNE as a family with my alcoholic stepfather. they put us on this crappy little wooden roller coaster, the Mouse, it was called. And it was like a little roller coaster, but up and down and up and down. I'm sitting next to my brother, who was always, if I was a big kid, he was a undersized kid. Like it looked like I was eating his food, but I wasn't. He was eating my food. My brother's metabolism was ridiculous. He would lose weight eating, and I would gain it watching him eat. It was just so frustrating. But so there we are. I think maybe he's a year younger than me, so we were like 8 and 9, 9 and 10, around there. And we're on this roller coaster that neither of us really wanted to be on. There was no one else. They put us on the roller coaster alone. And every time we went up and down, my brother would like leave the seat. Like you know what I mean? He was so small and light, like that as we went down, he would stay up. And I'm holding on to him for dear life because I just thought we were going to die. And this is one of the reasons I don't like roller coasters. The other reason I don't like the CNE for roller coasters is the problem with the CNE is that none of the rides were there a week ago, and we're only there for a couple of weeks and then they're gone. Like, so they're not permanent. And for me, that always kind of was alarm bells for me. Like I thought, oh gosh, I need, like when they opened Canada's Wonderland, that made more sense to me because those are permanent rides. They're like cemented into the ground and, you know, a little more secure. Like one of the things, one year at the CNE, I remember, you know, that ride with the swings and it spins and it goes up and then it tilts and you're on the swing and you're like, ah. One year, a couple of the swings just detached and people went flying across the sky of the CNE, and it was terrible. It was terrible. They shut down the ride. They shut down the CNE. It was awful. People were screaming. It was just awful. But like that was one of the things for me. It's like, I'm not getting on that ride. Whenever I would go to the CNE, which wasn't often, but if I went with friends, I was always the one that stood there and waited for them all. I held purses and coats or whatever, so people wouldn't lose them on the ride as they went upside down or whatever ride they were on. That's who I was. I was the keeper of the valuables because I would not get on them. But also I was a big kid. I remember one time I was on one ride at the CNE, the zipper, and one of the parts of the zipper was it went around like concentric circles. And as it's doing this, it's like, ugh, I could feel the girders whipping by my head. Like, not that they were that close, but the wind of them. And so I'm on this ride trying to hunker down and be small. And it wasn't working. But I remember going to the CNE. So here we are, a bunch of us. It's like, woo, we're at the CNE. Woo, we're going to see the Thompson Twins. Woo, let's get on a ride. So we did. We got on this roller coaster, and the roller coaster had a loop-the-loop, and I am hung over, trying my best. I'm going back into Reanimate, that light green with a clean brush now. I couldn't tell you what this is. It's been used so much. There's no marking on it whatsoever. But I'm just going back in to just extend this lighter green around my eye. So I am hungover. Like when we were in the stands at the concert, somebody was smoking a cigarette, not a joint, a cigarette. I'm trying not to throw up. Do you know what I mean? But so before the concert, we go to get on this. Everyone's like, "Oh, let's get on this ride." And I'm like, "No," and they're like, "You're getting on this ride." I'm like, ugh. And so we did. And I'll tell you, I was so impressed I didn't throw up on everybody because I said, I'm going to throw up on all of you. And this loops the loop, so I might throw up and then we'll come around and it'll hit you again, twice, you know. They weren't buying it. They're like, you're getting on that ride. And so we did, and no one was, but I remember going, I thought, I am going to lose it on this ride unless I can keep my eye on the horizon line. So when we went to do the loop, I immediately looked sideways and just watched the ground. Even though the ground went like that, it was just easier for me to kind of stay, my equilibrium to stay good. But, oh, and the concert was spectacular. The Thompson Twins were great live. I mean, this is well before people were lip syncing and doing weird things. But, yeah, My favorite bands from the 80s too. I loved Yaz, which was it Dave Clark and Alison Moyet. And then when Alison Moyet went on her own, I worshipped her. I thought she was great. Um, I discovered Bette Midler in the 80s. Not the way you'd think, like listening to it was she had a special on the movie channel, whatever it was called at the time. I don't remember what it was called, but it was called Art or Bust. And it was just one of her concerts, but again, I didn't know who she was. So Art or Bust was made in 1983, and then her film career, which had happened, she'd had The Rose, and then it kind of fell away. I think she had a couple of duds after The Rose, like Jinxed and things like that, that just didn't help anybody. But The Rose, but the thing with Bette Midler was that I didn't know was like in the 70s and that she had broken box office records on Broadway with her concerts, which were then subsequently filmed like live concerts, but they were played like movies in the theater. It was so 80s. She had like very 80s costumes and keep in mind, I didn't know anything about her, so I wasn't familiar with her songbook. I wasn't familiar with her uh, anything. Nothing. I had not seen The Rose. I'd never heard of The Rose. I was too young, really, for The Rose. But Art or Bust, she was so good. Like she started it off with the song "Pretty Legs and Great Big Knockers," and I'm immediately like glued to the TV. Like I was alone in the house too. No one was with me. It's like I saw this unexperienced, there was no witness to like this, like it was like a God, like and I was completely alone. You know what I mean? I think it would have been more believable that I saw a UFO than this woman singing and dancing on TV. And God, was she ever funny? And one of the songs that she did on it was "Stay With Me, Baby," which was, although I didn't know it, her song from The Rose. It was so funny because it's such a heartfelt song, and I'd never heard it. So here I am, this gay little, let's see, 83. I would have been 17. And "Stay With Me, Baby" is quite a heavy song. And out of this whole movie, like she's been fun and interesting and cute and a lot of rockers, a lot of songs I had never heard of, so I really enjoyed it. And then the band played this like really soulful, like this, and she starts singing "Stay With Me," but she has this long blue stretch jersey dress on that cowls in the front. And I think she had a black sheath on underneath it, but she starts pulling up this dress, so she has it up and moving it like this, so it's moving like this in front of her like water, but she's still pretty well covered. And she sings this whole song, and she gets to the break in the song where she talks, and, "Stay with me, baby, oh, whop." Have you ever had a moment like where you're sitting there alone and and you go, "Oh, I've effed up again," and oh my God, and then she goes like and like starts singing it. I'm like, who is this? Like, oh, the emotions and the power. And I was in love. If the internet had been around then, I would have broke it looking up Bette Midler. And I found everything. I think within 6 months, I had experienced everything. The Divine Miss M, her first album, the Divine Madness, one of her concert albums. There were a couple. I remember you could rent them all on VHS, and oh my God, Bette Midler, that was it. And then she was at the CNE, and I fell in love. Now, I have not done a Bette Midler film, I think, in my movie and makeup and movies, which I think is criminal. If I haven't done one, I have to. I definitely want to do The Rose because it was her first big film, but then she went on to Touchstone Pictures, which was a division of Disney. Okay, before I get too far into my Bette Midler story, I'm going to grab a P. Louise 230 fluffy brush, and I'm going to go into Good Guy, which is this yellow, And I'm just going to use it to blend out the front end of this green. Just a little. Anyway, so Ruthless People and Down and Out Beverly Hills were released the same year, 1986. But I feel like Down and Out Beverly Hills was first. And the whole thing with that movie was Bette Midler and Richard Dreyfuss and Nick Nolte were all failed film stars. Bette Midler had done the Rose and was nominated for an Oscar and didn't win, but she also didn't. Her next movie, Jinxed, I think it was, flop. It was terrible. She didn't make a movie for a long time. Richard Dreyfuss's film career, even though he had done Jaws and uh, Close Encounters, his film career kind of fizzled out by the 80s. And Nick Nolte, he had a lot of, his career kind of fell apart because I think he had a lot of problems, like a lot of drinking, or I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say because I don't know, but there were some reasons why all three of them were, for them to do a movie called Down and Out Beverly Hills, there was, I remember at the time, like part of the advertisement or on the interview circuit was that they were down in Beverly Hills. These people, they're kind of washed up, and why would, like, I think the reason that they all were in this movie was because they were affordable. But it was such a big hit. And then Ruthless People, Bette Midler wasn't the star in it. Like, this is how far down, like even in Down at Beverly Hills, it was Richard Dreyfuss and Nick Nolte and then Bette Midler. But even then, Bette Midler wasn't in every scene. She wasn't, she was part of the story, but not integral to the plot. You know what I mean? And then in Ruthless People, she played the wife of Danny DeVito who gets kidnapped, and she just was hilarious. And right after that, like she did Outrageous Fortune with Shelley Long. And the thing was, at the time, I mean, it's still, Bette Midler was considered to be the savior of Disney with their Touchstone film department, because the company, Disney, wasn't making money. They hadn't released The Little Mermaid yet. There was, just a kind of a stall on a lot of what Disney was doing. And they had started the Touchstone Pictures company to kind of branch out into more adult-like things. And, they had a couple of other films that had been out that did all right, but nothing really. And then Bette Midler came along and Lurdy-dur. So this is the kind of stuff I learned. I had no plans to talk about Bette Midler today. I don't know what's happening. But I love Bette Midler. I, at one point, when I was living on my own, had every magazine cover that Bette Midler had ever done at that time. Interview. Oh God, there were so many, so many. And what I would do is I'd take the magazine cover, I'd undo the staples, take the cover, and then take the pages of the article that she was in and put that in between the cover and then frame it with one of those clip frames. They were huge in the 80s. Clip frames, so you could immediately, like, they had them postcard size, so you could frame a postcard, and there were frameless frames. Do you know what I mean? And on my wall, I must have had 30 or 40 pictures of her on my wall. Who's gay? But I'm still a huge fan of Bette Midler. I'm just not that type of fan anymore. Like, I remember she did something called Mondo Trasho, which was around that time, but after she'd had success, and she'd just been married to her husband. I used to know his name. He was a German businessman, but he also was a performance artist. And so she did this video, if you can find it, called Mondo Trasho, and she's this big red wig, and I can't really remember, but it's all these different performers on it, and her husband and his performance partner, I think they were in like G-strings or long under, I don't know what they were wearing, but they like clown, like skull caps and clown makeup, and they just kept throwing stuff at each other, wet, powdery, like crazy. It was weird. I think that's about when I kind of was like, okay, maybe I don't have to watch everything she does. Alison Moyet, when she released Alf, her solo album, one of the songs on it was Invisible. Jesus. I still follow Alison Moyet on Instagram and Twitter, and or well, actually, I don't follow her on Twitter because I don't. When Twitter stopped, so did I. I still have an account there, but I don't. I don't visit it. I'm not interested. But Alison Moyet, oh, Invisible. Oh. I was a huge fan of Culture Club, not of Duran Duran. Duran Duran was the bigger band, or at least their career was longer. But I was not interested in them as much as I was with Culture Club, and then of course Annie Lennox and Cyndi Lauper. Like that. That was my. I like the weirdos. I like the people that weren't necessarily walking to the beat of the regular drummers. Do you know what I mean? All right, I'm just going to have a moment here and say this is an excellent palette. Look at how well that's blending. I've used this black, this green, and that yellow, and that is it. And I've used 2 brushes to do it. Okay, 3 brushes. But it's not too bad. All right, I'm going to cut my crease now. And as you know, P. Louise, Rumors, 0, shut it. Oh, that's not it. I got this in a budget box, I think. Or maybe this was in their advent calendar. This is the Partners in Pink. It's a face primer. I've actually used this. This is lovely. But I usually just go ahead and use the putty primer from e.l.f. But I'm actually almost at the end of this putty primer. It's almost done. I don't know if you're like me, but when I hit pan on anything, I kind of like, even though it's kind of like, oh God, it's almost gone. There's a part of me that's like, so when I'm done that, I'm actually going to then use this primer just to use it because I hate not using things. But here's the primer that I always use on my eye, the Rumor 0. Because it's white, it's not going to fight pigment colors. I don't, it's how I roll. I'm grabbing one of these gold brushes that I still don't know who makes them, but these are my favorite brushes for cut creases and things like that. All right, here we go. I saw concerts in the 80s. Like I said, because the 80s was a music era. Like it really was. There was a lot of influences in the culture and in the period that were music driven. Like there were movies and stuff and, but I feel like music had the bigger impact because videos had come out then. MTV, there was this one place on Yonge Street called the Peachtree Cafe that had MTV, and I would go in there after work at like, say 6:37, and I'd sit there till like 9 o'clock. I'd have dinner. I used to work at this place called Pastissima in the First Canadian place here in Toronto, and I worked there with Keanu Reeves. Yes, that one. And so after work, I would walk up Yonge Street from King and Bay to Yonge and Isabella, which is funny because I now live on Isabella Street. And the Peachtree Cafe, I would go in there. People knew if you wanted to find me, again, before cell phones, if you wanted to find me, that's where I was. And especially on the weekend. And I would go in there and I'd have like a meal, usually something affordable and small, like not like, like a steak or something. They had a soup and a salad thing that was affordable, but that I actually quite liked. And it would change. I guess it was a different thing every day, but I would go in there and watch MTV for hours, but they would fill me up with coffee. They never kicked me out. Like I was never, it's not like I was sitting there only drinking coffee. I was doing other things. And then at some point, invariably, like people would show up. And so I might be sitting there by myself at a small table, but by the time we'd leave, I was at a bigger table with more people. So I guess they got used to me and realized like that I was worth letting sit there. But then on the weekends, we would go to there's this place across the street called Domino's. It was upstairs, and it was like an alternative club. It used to be. I think they moved it down across from the Eaton Center, and then when they moved it, it became Comrades, and it was a gay bar. And it was just a great little place that was right there, and you could just go in and dance all night. It was such a big club, and you didn't need to drink. Like, I don't even remember that they had a cover. If you got there early enough, there wasn't a cover. But I did drink, but I wasn't a big drinker. I think it was more a financial thing for me. But I love to go there and dance, and I love the music. I would always make requests. Like Gwen Guthrie, There Ain't Nothing Going On But the Rent. I bugged that DJ so I wanted to hear that song all the time. And I love dancing, and so my friends and I would just hang out there on the weekends, especially. But it was open all through the week. Um, I saw my first concert in the '80s with my friend Maxine Cassidy, who I'm still friends with. She's a chef now. She's a holistic chef. But at the time, she worked in a health food store, so she's always been that person. And we worked side by side. So I was in Pastissima and she was in Naturally Yours, I think it was called. So we're walking up Yonge Street and somebody's scalping tickets to this concert at Massey Hall. And now I'd never been to a concert. And the concert had already started. So these tickets were cheap. And Maxine's like, do you want to go see this concert? It was Big Country. And we did, and we sat, our seats were really good. They were in like one of the balconies at the front. So I'm watching this concert, and it was weird because I'd never seen a concert, so I'd never seen a band live. And there was something about them performing live and going, oh, they actually do sound like that I don't know why I didn't expect them to, but it was so impressive. And then halfway through the concert, this woman, and it surprised me, and she's a large woman, which isn't what was amazing, is that she got up on stage. I couldn't have seen how she got up on that stage, but she rushed the lead singer. And when she rushed him, she knocked his guitar into his face. So he was a little put out, and he had this little teacher speech after, like, you know, if you're going to act like kids, we're going to stop the show, or, you know, don't make me turn this car around. It was just very kind of like, shame. And so they were from Europe anyway. So there was like a very like, you rowdy Americans type of thing where they were concerned. It was just very odd at the time. But I saw that. I saw Culture Club at, I think the Maple Leaf Gardens before they closed Maple Leaf Gardens. They're burning down the house. Waking Up with the House on Fire. That was the album. Boy George had that big red wig on the cover, and then all of the public appearances that he did at that time were with no hair in a pillbox, full face of makeup. And I sat in line overnight in an alley off of Yonge Street with all these other people who were buying tickets the next day, like the minute Ticketmaster opened. And I met this woman and her daughter was maybe 5 or 6 years younger than me, and her mother was, you know, like 15, 20, like she was a young mom, but she was like not as old as my mother, but so I got along with both of them, and we ended up being friends for years. And her mom died, and I didn't keep in touch with her, but it was we sat there overnight in this alley waiting for Boy George tickets. So funny. Okay, so now I'm going to go in with the Jessup 226. It's a smudger brush. And I'm going to go into Halloween, this gorgeous orange. And I'm just going to put this like in the inner third of my eyelid on both sides. So anyway, I went and saw this concert, and the next day at school, keep in mind, I was living on my own, but I was still trying to finish grade 12. I ended up not passing grade 12 because I dropped guitar. I didn't want to learn to play Stairway to Heaven. All these kids, all they wanted to learn was Stairway to Heaven, and I didn't enjoy guitar. So I dropped it, and I was 1 credit short for grade 12. So I was, the next day at school, I was talking about this concert. And this one girl that I knew, she's like, well, we're going tonight, but we have a spare ticket. Do you want it? It's like, sure. So first time I saw a concert twice in a row. I've not seen a lot of concerts, though. I mean, I'm not a big fan of it. I don't like crowds. I'm not patient. I don't like waiting. Like, if I have to leave and the door's there, but I have to wait 20 minutes as other people file it, I get a little antsy. Like, I'm one of those people in a theater, I will watch the entire credit roll before I leave because people have left by then. Unless it's a Marvel movie, and then I just get the hell out because I know no one's leaving, and then I can get out. If my friends want to tell me what the Easter egg clip was, then they can do it, but I don't care. I remember years later, it was one of Cher's farewell tours. It was my birthday, and a friend of mine and I were going to go to the concert, and she wasn't particularly interested. She wasn't a big fan of Cher, but I had asked her, and she said, yeah. And I kind of, while we were talking and while we were getting ready, I also wasn't interested really in going because I was tired. I was like, oh, I don't want to go. And then while we were talking, she was like, yeah, I'm not particularly interested. I'm not a big Cher fan or anything. And so I said, do you really even want to go? Like, I'm good if we don't. She goes, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, like I didn't pay for these. It's not like I'm going to miss out. So I didn't go to see Cher. But I also feel like in concerts like that, those big stadium concerts, I don't enjoy those because what am I watching? Like, I can barely see the person unless I'm looking at the screen. So if I'm looking at the screens, I might as well wait for the video of the concert to come out and rent that. I know I saw Madonna in concert, but I think it was the Girly tour. And again, so far away, and it was all right. But there's also a level of something like that where I feel like, are they even singing? Is it just lip syncing? Like, I can't even tell. I'm keeping this same brush, and now I'm going to go into Nightmare, which is this really, it's between purple and red. So I'm going to blend it into the orange here. I like to go see a band live, like in a bar. That's fun. I'm always more impressed with that kind of a performance because I feel like you can see the band and you can hear the band better. Like, this is them. This isn't like a bunch of filters and tracks and things like that. If I can see a band in a small venue, I will. Much more over like a stadium. I don't like those. They're so impersonal. I used to make all my own clothes in the 80s. I was going to go into fashion design. And I loved the 80s. It was all shoulder pads and fabulousness. And I used to make my own. I used to take muslin fabric because I was an art student, and you get muslin for like 90 cents a yard and different thicknesses. And once you washed it, it was just cotton. So I would wash it and dye it like different colors and things and make clothes. And I'm going back into Good Guy Yellow. Same brush. I've wiped it off on my bar towel, but I'm just going to do the inner corner with it. I made myself this coat one winter. Somebody had given me the most beautiful blue wool, or green wool, but it was like, I keep thinking of it as being like Scottish or Irish wool because it was green, but there was blue in it. It was very beautifully woven fabric. And I made this long, almost like a robe, almost like a Game of Thrones robe, big shoulder pads, no collar, but it had like, it created its own collar in the way it draped. And it was long. And when I walked, it would just billow behind me because it would catch the air. But whenever I got onto the streetcar, back then you had to step up onto the streetcars. They weren't level to the ground like they are now. Whenever I get up onto the streetcar or something, I go to step and I step on the coat and I go to stand, I just go down like I had long hair. And it was always such an embarrassing like spectacle. Like, oh, look, the new romantic punk rocker just 8th floor. I was not a cool person at all. I tried so hard, but I was not cool. But the only reason I made my own clothes or started sewing at all was because I was such a big kid. And back then in the 80s, all those great clothes, they weren't for big people, you know, like even if you were tall, if you were fat, they weren't for you. You know, there was really a size limit for clothing, which was, you know, that's the way it was then. It's different now, and that's good. But yeah, if I had been an off the rack person, I don't think I would have ever have made my own clothes. Yeah, I love this. This is great. Look at how bright that yellow is. Now, I will say about this yellow that it took me a couple of goes to get it. Like it at least it builds up, like it was a little sheer out of the gate. I'm just going to go back in to massacre the black with this brush. I'm just going to blend out a little of this edge here. Everything that I did was out of necessity, not out of interest. And I'm still that way now. Like I learned to style wigs because, well, I can't afford to have them done. And even though Denise does spoil me, I like to keep the wigs up. So out of respect for the work that she does when she sends me these things, I try and do my best in keeping them as gorgeous as I can. Speaking of gorgeous, all right, so that's more or less the eyes. I'm going to just give myself a little bit of a spray. Let me just I'm using the Maybelline Lasting Fix. This is all right. I got sent this. I'm sorry I don't remember who sent this to me. But it's it was on my Amazon wish list, and it's good. I've used other things, Elf, Rude. They're all the same more or less, you know. But so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to step off camera. I'm going to finish my eyes with the eyeliner, do the underline, my eyelashes, put on a little more contour and blush, lips, change my chemise, and add some hair, and we'll be right back. Shut up. It's shady. And there's the finished look. Well, I don't know if I have 80s hair on, but it certainly makes me think of Cyndi Lauper, and that's about as 80s as you can get. I don't have big 80s earrings like the Golden Girls always wore, those big clip-ons from the 80s, but I thought I would wear these from Lally, my blue beaded hoops. And this wig was given to me by my very good friend, Aunt B, who is also my nail guru, my nail whisperer. I'm not wearing nails today, though, because I'm filming something else right after this, and I can't have nails for it. But this is it. This is the look. And the look was made with this palette from Creature Cosmetics, Revenge of the 80s. What do I think of this palette? Well, I first of all have to say, I love the color story. There's a lot of variety in here. I think there's a lot of things that you could do with this palette. There's definitely more than 2 looks worth in here. I love how this purple red tone marries this orange with this purple. The shimmers are all great. I didn't use any of them, though. I did swatch them all, but I didn't use any. I used, what did I use? Yeah, I didn't put any shimmer on my eyelids whatsoever. All I did was the Good Guy, Halloween, and Nightmare. Those are the 3 that are on my eyelid. And then I used these 2, the 13th, Reanimate, and then I used Massacre, which is the black with the sparkle in it, for my outer lid. I thought it blended really well. Nothing in the pan crumbled, or there was not a lot of kick up or fallout. I had no fallout actually on my face. The colors were very pigmented. They were also buildable, which I liked. The yellow I thought was going to be a dud, and then it wasn't. All of the colors were buildable. They all blended beautifully. And with that said, I think that Martha Grunwald, who sent me this palette from Creature Cosmetics, will be very happy to hear that this is Drag Queen approved. You heard me. It's a lovely little palette. Now, I'm going to put a link down below to this palette on the Creature Cosmetics site. Martha's a huge fan of all of their palettes. She has a couple, and they don't have sales often, but if you ever notice a sale for Creature Cosmetics, run, don't walk, and take advantage of the glamour. I have to say, this was fun for me. I talked about a lot of stuff from the 80s I haven't thought about in decades, so it was nice to kind of visit my youth, and I'm so glad that you spent time with me here. If you enjoyed this video and this look, please give me a thumbs up. Also subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and share this video. Anyone else you know from the 80s, maybe, who would love to get a Revenge of the 80s palette from Creature Cosmetics? Have you used Revenge of the 80s from Creature Cosmetics? Have you even heard of Creature Cosmetics? Leave me a comment down below, because that is a great way to help support the Fingerdo review, because it boosts my algorithm. You heard me. I also have links down below, not only to the Creature Cosmetics palette, but to my PayPal account, so you can leave a tip or do if you'd like to help support the Fingerdo family more. There's also a link to my Redbubble store where you can get your own Wilma merch, and there's a link to my Patreon page where the Fingerdo family meets twice a month. Yes, you heard me, twice a month, for a live chat where we basically talk about people we hate. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, I hope you stay healthy. I hope you remain happy. And until then, miss me. Mwah. Seriously.